thrilled to have the director Cesar Cabral and producer Ivan Melo, who've flown in from Brazil to join us today, and they will say a few words. What you're going to see this afternoon is an irreverent, countercultural film that moves between stop motion, animation, documentary, comedy, and a road movie. The film premiered at the world-renowned Animação International Animated Film Festival in June 2021, where it won the coveted Contrachant Prize. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it for those who don't know, but many of you will know about Anjali. The story is freely inspired by the life and work of one of the most celebrated Brazilian cartoonists of all time, Arnaldo Anjali Filho. I don't know if I pronounced it, better known as Anjali. He became famous in the 70s for his political cartoons in the midst of Brazil's military dictatorship. Anjali's daily strips represented Brazil's society, day-to-day life and customs with acid humor through an amazing array of characters, some of which are portrayed in this film, and the main one, the green punk, Bob Spit. He became one of the most iconic comic book characters of all time in Brazil. Cesar Cabral, the director's film, explores the conflict between the monster and his creator. So that's actually involved. And the clash between punk versus pop, which you will see for those of you who know Elton John, they're represented by destructive mini Elton Johns with very sharp teeth. We wish to thank Outsider Pictures, distributor, the Consulate General of Brazil in Los Angeles, and the Deputy Consul Philippe Bruncuna, who will say a couple of words, the Los Angeles Brazilian Film Festival, and Mady Fernandes, and the Hollywood Brazilian Film Festival, Thalys Sayed. So I'd like to introduce briefly Philippe, the Deputy Consul, who will say a few words, and then following the director and the producer, who's also.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's an honor for me to be here today to welcome you and to introduce you to Bob Spit, We Do Not Like People. This film has already made history, as it's only the second stop-motion feature film in the history of Brazilian cinema. And making movies in Brazil, especially making animation in Brazil, is mostly an act of love because there are so many obstacles and difficulties that filmmakers go through. And because of that, just the fact that we're able to bring Bob Spit to Hollywood and show it to you today just fills us with a lot of pride and a lot of joy. As you may know, Bob Spit is the only Latin American film on the short list for the category of Best Animated Feature Film for the upcoming Academy Awards. We know we're up against some very big players, but we believe in the potential and we believe in the quality of this movie. And most of all, we believe in the willingness of the animated branch of the Academy to continue to shed light on animation from all parts of the globe, no matter how large or small the budget, as it has been doing in the past few years. And because of that, we do hope that you'll take our film into consideration. With that said, I would like to thank you very much for coming here today. I'm looking forward to meeting with you and talking to you after the film, and I hope you have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you very much to be here. We thought it would help me with my poor English. It's an honor to be here. Bob Spit is my first feature film. I directed some short films before, always in stop motion.
With his poor English.
Bem, eu não vou me estender muito, porque eu acho importante a gente falar depois do Q&A. Vocês vão assistir a sessão. Então vai ser prazer conversar com vocês.
I won't speak too much now because I think it's important to talk afterwards, but it's going to be a pleasure speaking to you guys after we watch the film.
Thank you.
Just a few words. I'd like to thank a lot Deborah and Jan. Paul Hudson, who's here from Outside the Picture, who's our American distributor and international sales. Some companies in Brazil that helped us. I have to talk about São Paulo Film Commission, SPCine, Fresh People, Projeto Paradiso, and
Canal Brasil.
Canal Brasil. They helped us in this running. It's a lot of money to us, you know. So we are very happy. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us on a Saturday in the middle of this COVID situation. So thank you so much for being here. I really hope you enjoy the film and don't lose your time here, you know. You might feel sometimes like stealing, sometimes some people 90 minutes, very special minutes. So thank you very much for coming here. That's it.
And stop motion puppet that they brought with them.
Nice. Yay! Woohoo!
Hi guys.
Woohoo!
This is the mini Elton John, nice when he's not. And now when he's angry.
Nossa.
Where can we buy them?
Right?
Hold this one because I'm, you know, they don't like me to touch because I always destroyed it.
So we're going to ask just a few questions, and then I'm going to open it up if there are any questions from the audience. And then we're going to have a little reception where you can also chat to everyone. Just a bit of housekeeping, make sure that everyone, because I checked in everyone regarding your vaccinations and all of that. So if there's anyone who hasn't had a check-in, I don't believe there is any, just see me afterwards before the reception. Okay. So again.
Then let me put it. I don't know.
Agora vale milhões.
So, I'm going to ask Cesar, what motivated you to make Cuspe, and what was it about Angeli that drew you to make this film?
Bem, o Angeli, talvez não, é uma grande influência para toda uma geração no Brasil. Foi ele que nos anos 80, logo depois do final da ditadura, começou a produzir um quadrinho independente que mostrava não só o próprio cartoon, mas também trazia referências de coisas que a gente procurava muito, que era a música, literatura. Então ele foi meio o quadrinho dele foi meio um processo de formação para uma geração.
So Angeli was a great influence, had a great influence in an entire generation during the 80s, towards after the end of the military dictatorship in Brazil. He was the one that started independent comic books that reference a lot of things that we were looking for, such as music and literature. So it was a part of the coming of age of an entire generation.
Thank you. And Ivan, what was Angeli's involvement in the making of the film?
Well, Angeli is involved with Cesar for a long time already. Cesar did his first short film, was named Rebordosa, that is the last girl that shows up in the film. Yeah, and she was very, very famous in Brazil, and Cesar did a documentary about her death, and it was a great success in Brazil and all over the world. So it was the first time, you know, Cesar was connected to Angeli. Then later, Cesar started doing a local TV series show. It's in the second season already. Well, that is, I'm not involved, so let me, but Angeli the Killer, right? Angeli the Killer, yes, it's in the second season now. So, and the involvement in the film was like, you know, Cesar did these interviews during 2 years, different times, you know, but during 2 years, Cesar was interviewing Angeli, keeping these interviews there, and then he came up with the idea of doing this feature film about Angeli and his main character, that is Bob Speed. So Angeli, we didn't show too much to him. We just, you know, we tried to avoid no. So we decided to do not show too much. We showed him in the end, and then he loved the film. And Carol, that is his wife and manager, she also loved it. So it was good.
So stop motion is rare in Brazil. and in fact probably in the whole of Latin America, if I'm not wrong. What drew you to make the film in stop motion, Cesar?
Eu acho, assim, na verdade, desde que eu me formei, eu sou formado em cinema, e eu fiz um curso de cinema, sempre pensando em trabalhar com live action, com atores, e eu acho que o stop motion é o que mais aproxima, dentro de uma produção animada, a uma situação real de filmagem, onde você tem os cenários, a luz, o equipamento todo, né, um set de filmagem, e a diferença, eu sempre brinco que a diferença é que, ao invés de você falar ação e ter um ator ali atuando, você vai produzindo essa ação dos personagens frame a frame. Para ter uma ideia, a nossa produção de animação em stop motion. A nossa produção de animação girava em torno de 2, 3 segundos por dia, né? Assim, quando muito, um mês por mês, 1 minuto por mês a cada set, né? Então é um processo muito artesanal.
So my formation, my academic formation, I graduated from film school and thinking that I would work with live action. And I think that within the world of animation, stop motion is the closest that we can get, because you still have all the lighting and the sets, and you have all the same similar structure. And the difference is that instead of saying action, you kind of produce things frame by frame. And the way that it works with our production is that
You're doing well.
there you go. The way it works with our production is that we recorded an average of 2 to 3 seconds a day, which means that it's about a minute per month. So it's a very slow and DIY process of production.
Yeah. Just a few words. Because while Cesar was shooting the film, I mean shooting, not only preparing and producing, but shooting the film, I did other 2 feature films, so it's quite crazy doing what this guy does, so.
Wow.
So music, in particular rock music, is at the root of Angela's work. What can you tell us about the choice of music involved with it?
Eu acho que a música no filme ela tem um papel fundamental, que ela guia uma narrativa, que é o lado do punk, de uma música mais independente, e ao mesmo tempo o lado do pop. Eu acho que a construção essa construção sonora ao longo do filme, e que aos poucos vai se misturando, né, porque a grande brincadeira era o pop está vencendo o punk, né, assim, que tem, né, diversas referências e metáforas em relação a isso. Mas a escolha foi um trabalho de algumas músicas referentes à minha época no Brasil, e também um trabalho original do André Bujanra e do Márcio Negro. São compositores, o André Bujanra inclusive faz a voz de um dos personagens. Falei muito de novo. I'm sorry.
So music is fundamental in this narrative because it guides the narrative, and it's the whole idea that you guys saw of like punk versus pop. And this, the way that we built this and how as a narrative moves along, those 2 different styles of music mix. And that's the big joke, that pop is winning over punk music. And the way that the choices of the songs in particular worked, some songs were songs that were present during my time in Brazil, my youth. And some of the songs were a result of the original work of André Bujan, who also voices one of the characters in the movie.
And the final question, then I'll open it up to you guys. How was the film financed, Ivan? And what were the challenges about getting the financing?
So the film was financed in this, public terms, as we can do in Brazil. So at that time we had very good public funds in Brazil still. And then we had but most of the money is public. Then at the end of the film we had some problems and we had to look for new partners. So Quanta Post helped us with the post-production, and some people worked with us with the sounds post-production, but I mean it was basically funded by local funds, and our new project now, we have a new project that is an international co-production, but it's always difficult to fund the first film as a, so we depended a lot on local funds. And it was like $1 million, which is quite not too much for a feature film. It's more, usually it's $40 million. We did it with 1 million, so it's quite okay.
That's great. So does anyone have any questions? Yes,
Just to tell you
use the
something,
mic.
oh,
Yeah.
you need it?
I can
Well,
bring this up.
I can shout.
No, I can bring it.
Yeah, my question is, do younger people in Brazil have the same appreciation of Angeli that you did, that it was important to you? Because of course the dictatorship was finished in the early 80s, I think. So if you said to the average 10-year-old or 20-year-old or 30-year-old and talked about Angeli, would it make any difference to them, or are their heroes completely different?
Claro que o Angeli marcou uma geração, mas o filme a gente buscou trabalhar, não só no Brasil, mas de maneira geral, um diálogo com o público jovem. E eu acho que ele funciona muito bem, né? Assim, eu sempre conto da primeira experiência. O filme foi lançado no Festival de Annecy, né, que é o festival mais importante de animação no mundo, e no dia seguinte, eu acabei não indo para lá por conta do Covid, mas no dia seguinte eu recebi um e-mail de uma menina, uma garota, uma estudante do Vietnã, que mora em Paris, e ela tinha assistido o filme e ela escreveu com tantos detalhes sobre o filme que foi quando eu senti que realmente o filme comunicava com o público. E a gente, a cada vez mais que exibe, principalmente para essa nova geração, eu acho que há um diálogo, sim, porque o punk, ele é universal, né?
Any other questions?
So Angeli definitely was influenced one generation, but I think that the movie goes beyond that, and not just in Brazilian terms, but I think that we are able to dialogue with young people in general. I like to bring up the example of when the movie premiered in the Annecy Film Festival, the most important animation film festival in the world, and I wasn't able to go because of COVID. And shortly after, I received an email from a girl who had seen the film, and she was from Vietnam but lived in Paris, and she got the chance to watch the movie and sent me an email with such vivid details. And that's when I realized that the movie does communicate with the younger public, because punk, after all, is universal.
Just want to add something for this. I thought, I can tell you the truth, right? Cesar and I, we were discussing all the time, like, how to make it reach the young generation. We are 50 years old guys, Angeli is on his 70s, and all this, all those guys were very famous on the 80s. So we knew we were talking to a generation. So we tried to do it more fresh as possible. And to tell you the truth, the first time that I really realized that it helped was when we were showing the films in festivals. And the young guys came to us and started telling us in the festivals, oh, we love this guy, this Angeli, he's crazy, he's nice, the way he talks to people, the way he looks to the society is something that we should do, and so on. So I think that it's much more like, if you have the chance to show to young people, and these young people see this guy and this, more Angeli and his way of looking to the life, and the attitude of this punk, because I think for these guys it's, most of people with 18, 19 years old in Brazil, they don't know Angeli anymore. They don't know Bob Speed or Rei Bordosa. But now they are connecting to him again, and lots of them are sending messages to us, and they are looking for the books and so on, which is nice. But that's it, right?
Does anyone have a question? Yes.
parabéns pelo filme, incrível. E uma coisa que me chamou a atenção foi a forma como você conta essa história. Em que momento surgiu essa ideia? Parece um híbrido, né? Parece um cinema híbrido, né? É um pouco documentário, um pouco a própria ficção dos personagens. Como foi que surgiu essa ideia? E assim, para primeira direção de longa, tá assim, meus parabéns, tá muito bom. E mais uma coisa, desculpa. O Bob Spit, como é que ele reagiria diante desse momento que a gente está vivendo, né, meio que um filme de terror no Brasil, em questões de governo e questões sociais, assim? Eu tenho essas duas perguntas. Obrigado.
So I have two questions, and the first one is in regards of the form that you chose to tell this story. That kind of is a bit of a hybrid cinema. There's some documentary, some aspects of documentary filmmaking. There's also the fiction, like of the characters. So how that idea came to be. And so for his first feature, I thought it was incredible. Congratulations. And also, how would Bob Spit react to this current moment that we're living in Brazil, this horror, this moment of horror in regards to the government and also social issues? So yeah, those are my two questions.
Vou começar respondendo pela segunda, que é mais fácil. Certamente Bob Cuspe cuspiria em todo mundo facilmente. E sobre a relação e a construção do filme, eu me aproximei, como o Ivan lembrou aqui, na produção do curta que eu fiz antes, e a ideia era aproximar do Angeli de uma maneira documental e até íntima, assim, próxima a ele, que eu não ia muito com uma entrevista pautada, mas eu ia conversando com ele. Esse processo ficou durante 2 anos acontecendo. Eu gravei cerca de 30 horas de material. Você quer tentar traduzir?
I'll start with the second question because that's the easiest. Bob Spit would just spit on everybody in Brazil. And in regards to the making of the movie, so I got close to Angeli, like Ivan was saying, because of the short film that I made before. So my conversations with him, it was sort of like a documentary, but it was very intimate, and most of all it was like a conversation. So for 2 years I was able to get close to him, and I had about 30 hours of footage documented of him.
E algumas coisas eu tinha muito claras, assim, que era construir uma relação entre o autor e seus personagens. E também tinha como propósito na produção de que todos os diálogos do Angeli seriam reais, seriam documentados. Não teve nada que a gente escreveu ou roteirizou para Angeli. Então o filme ele trabalha numa vertente, é um documentário com entrevistas, e isso a gente vai construindo a partir de conversas possíveis que eu tive com ele. E isso é um material base para a parte ficcional do filme, né? E o Angeli ele é famoso ali por, de certa maneira, ele tem uma relação com o passado dele que ele, de certa maneira, elimina esse passado para dar um passo à frente, né? Então a ideia era aproximar de um autor com 60 anos de idade, em busca, ele está em crise mesmo, assim, muito ali é verdade do que acontece com ele, e tentando encontrar um novo caminho para o trabalho dele, né? Ele não tem uma coisa que se aquieta, né? Ele está sempre buscando algo novo, assim.
And time for one more question.
Não.
She speaks
Portuguese.
Something that was very clear to me from the start was creating the relationship between the creator and the characters, so the author and its characters. And something that we really wanted to do that happened in the movie is that all the dialogue, everything that Angeli says, it's real. So we never wrote lines for him. Everything that you hear him saying, it's all real. So the hours of documented footage that I have and the interviews worked as kind of a blueprint for the fictionalized part of the movie. And so Angeli's kind of famous because he sort of hates on his past as a way to move on. And so we have this author in his 60s in crisis, and a lot of what you see is a true crisis that he's having. And he's just trying to find a new path of work, a new material, a new ways of moving on.
Thank you. You're doing so brilliantly. And one last question.
Hello. Thank you for being here with us tonight. My question is, did you know from start on the interviews that this project was gonna happen? How do you work with the main creator on that regard? And then to bring him as a voice later on the fiction, right? How does that work? Because he seems very authentic on his positions and enclosed in a certain way. So like for him to open up and then say yes to the fiction part. And so I guess it's like still very curious about how did you create the script for this story? And how is the process as a director with the actors on the dubbing for a stop motion? What comes for, if you can break down that process for us? And maybe answer a question that nobody ever asked, something from the film that nobody ever asked.
I'll try to answer. A primeira, na verdade, eu acho que foi a construção e a aproximação do Angeli, nessa, não como uma entrevista pautada, mas numa relação em que ele me contava histórias. Você vai se aproximando do seu personagem ali que você está documentando, de uma maneira a buscar coisas que ele não responderia de bate-pronto. Muitas vezes uma pessoa que está sempre dando entrevista, ela tem as respostas prontas. E eu não queria esse material que eu já tinha ouvido em outras entrevistas. Inclusive eu já tinha feito outras entrevistas com ele. Então eu acho que essa aproximação foi o primeiro ponto que trouxe uma certa originalidade no que ele iria dizer, porque ele me contava histórias da vida dele, né?
So, in regards to your first question, how to get this fictionalized version of him when he looks like he has his own convictions and it's kind of like a closed-off guy, was because it all has to do with when I was interviewing him. I never presented the interview like a structured interview. It was more like a conversation where he got to tell stories and share things that happened to him, because I wasn't interested in those go-to answers that someone who gets interviewed all the time is ready to give. I myself had seen interviews with him, and I wanted different answers. I wanted something more real. So approaching everything as just like an informal conversation made him say things that maybe he wouldn't have said had the interview felt more formal. So this is kind of this, my proximity with him was kind of how I was able to fictionalize him in a way that felt true.
Sobre o roteiro que você perguntou também, eu acho que como no processo de documentário tradicional, a gente parte de uma ideia, já tinha algumas coisas claras, que seria a história de um autor, com a sua obra, como ele se relaciona com ela e trazendo o momento atual do que ele estava vivendo. Então o roteiro foi um processo que partiu tinha esse ponto de start, mas ele foi sendo construído não só na escrita, mas também na montagem. O primeiro material que a gente teve foram essas entrevistas, e era com ela que a gente lidava a construção da parte ficcional, né? Então, e isso foi junto com a montagem até o final da produção, o que deixava os produtores malucos, né? Porque em animação você não tem a possibilidade de ficar fazendo takes extras, né? Você tem que produzir, é tão complicado o processo que você tem que produzir muito certo o que você vai usar, né? E você não conseguia ter isso muito planejado a longo prazo. O meu planejamento era quase mensal, às vezes uma semana, às vezes até no dia que a gente ia filmar.
So about the screenplay that you asked, so much like in a documentary, we started off with an idea, like we knew that we wanted to talk about the author and his subjects and also how he was dealing with the crises that he was having in present day. And the screenplay was so we started with this starting point, and we developed the screenplay as we were shooting, and especially as we were editing the film. So it was a process very similar to documentary work, and it drove the producers kind of crazy because with animation you don't have the wiggle room to shoot several takes. You kind of have to know exactly what you want when you first approach each scene, but that's how we went about it.
Still, we cut 20 minutes of the film out, 20 minutes finished. I mean, so, but it makes part. Sometimes you have to do it in terms to, if you want to communicate, right? The film was very much, I think that the film before was more Brazilian, much more Brazilian than it's now, it's more international now because you don't really need to know Angeli nowadays. I mean, it would be nice if you could, but if you don't, it's an artist in crisis, right? There is something I want to talk about Angeli seeing himself that you asked, so I can tell this already. We did a conversation with Angeli Laerte, that is another very famous Brazilian cartoonist, and Carol, and some people that were in the film. We did a conversation with them, and they were, at first, they were horrified with their own, with seeing themselves in the screen as a puppet, as a speaking puppet, and a puppet that speaks with their own voice. So they were like shocked. Not because they didn't like, they really loved, but it was like shocking for them to see themselves like that. They do this all the time because they do characters, and it's always based on people, so they know very well what is this because they do this. Como é que fala? Quando desenha o rosto de alguém?
Caricatura.
Caricature. Yes. It's kind of portrait, yeah. They do this a lot about other people, so they got shocked about looking themselves and see how people look at them. And it also brings me to give you the other answer because, in stop motion, you first record everybody. So people read, actors read all the script, and then we start doing the animation on this. Sometimes you adjust something at the end, but mostly it's this, you have people read it, and then we can do something else at the end.
Só para complementar um pouquinho o que o Ivan acabou de falar, nesse filme a gente tinha a intenção de fazer uma animação naturalista, que passasse, ou até que em um determinado momento a pessoa esquecesse que estava vendo um filme de animação. Então os atores que fizeram a voz também, a gente gravava a atuação dele. E quando não gravava, o diretor de animação atuava. Então toda a animação ela tinha como base um material de referência para dar o acting dos personagens, né? Então o animador trabalhava muito que seria uma animação mais natural, né? A animação tem muita coisa de ser meio cartoon, né? Tudo meio cômico. E a gente não queria isso. Era para passar até para comunicar, eu acho que de certa maneira, com o próprio documentário, né? Deixa isso mais real.
Muito legal.
So just to add, in this animation, we really wanted the movie to be a very naturalistic animation, and we wanted people to forget that they were watching an animation when watching the movie. So we actually recorded the actors, the voiceover actors, acting, and our director, our artists that animated for us, they all acted as well. So we always had this material because I feel as though cartoon and animation is very cartoonish and very comic, infantile, and we just wanted to approach naturalism and realism, especially to be able to communicate with the documentary part of the movie. So that's how we went about that.
And the last question we will tell you outside because I think it's already done. It's the question that nobody did, right? Lots of questions. Also.
Thank you so much, and please join us to continue discussing outside.
Thank you.